Hello, citizens of YouTube land.
Hey.
And hey,
Sorry it's so dark in here, guys. We actually ran out of natural lighting.
Yeah. And as always, if you want to become a citizen of YouTube land, all you have to do is hit that subscription button below. Now, it's your president and your VP back, as promised from last time, with I love this movie.
Yes, we finally got to it, guys.
This time, it's
Spiderman
2002.
Oh, yes. Oh, we also have this on DVD, so let me show you the DVD cover.
Yeah.
We own the entire trilogy, so for
Spider-Man
episodes, we will be doing the entire Spider-Man trilogy, Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy.
Yeah,
it's backwards because, there's some, but
so
here it is. This is the movie right here we'll be reviewing first. So take a look at the cover.
Yeah, as promised, finally getting to it, guys. Spider-Man premiered in May of 2002. It grossed...
Yeah, May 23.
It was
May 23rd, 2002.
Yep. It was directed by Sam Raimi. It stars Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, Willem Dafoe, James Franco, and J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, oh crap. No, you could have gotten that. Yeah, it was J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson.
I was waiting for the segue, guys.
I'm so sorry, Dad. I know. I didn't know if you wanted me to do Aunt May or Ben or if it was JJ you wanted me to say.
Stan Lee also has a cameo appearance in the movie.
He makes a cameo appearance in all three. And so does Bruce Campbell.
It was made for a little over $100 million, and it grossed well over $800 million.
$825 million. Now, I know what you people are thinking, but that's not the highest grossing Spider-Man movie.
Hold on.
We don't care.
It doesn't matter. The film, not that this matters much either, but it has a Rotten Tomato score of an incredible 90%, guys, for those of you who care.
Certified fresh.
What Rotten Tomatoes think, which I really don't. I've seen a lot of movies that I thought were really great that they gave horrible scores to. But that's not the point. So this movie is also one of the most successful superhero origin movies of all time. It was only surpassed by Wonder Woman 15 years later as far as box office gross for a superhero film. Superhero origin film, excuse me.
Superhero origin film, Spider-Man held the record for 15 years before Wonder Woman took its place.
It was originally in development hell for a long time.
If you guys want to know what developmental hell is, it's basically when a movie is taking just a super long time to make that it's not even worth it anymore.
Yeah, being a young kid at the time in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, I remember the comics, and it was during, for those of you out there who collect comics, it was during the dreaded Clone Saga story that I remember hearing about it in the old Spider-Man mailbag at the end of the issues. They would answer reader comments and stuff, and they had mentioned that the movie was in development, and this would have been around 1994, and it was another 8 years before they were finally able to get the movie made.
Yeah, it was originally supposed to be by MGM, who had a bunch of different directors on it. Yeah, they had like 3 directors before they got Sam Raimi, and then a bunch of other directors that they were interested in.
Including James Cameron.
By the way, which we would have gotten Leonardo DiCaprio.
Was considered for the role of Peter Parker. Which would be
literally Jack as Spider-Man.
Yeah,
there's
Jack
no doubt
from Titanic
Jack
from
Titanic as
Could you guys have imagined that one?
No, I can't.
On the other hand, it would have been hard to imagine Tobey Maguire at the time as Spider-Man. However, after he was cast in the part, he had actually done his research and spent some time kind of walking around New York and stuff and trying to get that feeling of an outsider that you so often get with Peter Parker, because Peter Parker, at his core, is a bit of an outsider, a bit of a loner, which is why he kind of always works alone for the most part, and in his role as a superhero.
Yeah. So
getting back to the subject, Tobey Maguire had enlisted a yoga instructor, a martial arts instructor, a climbing instructor, and in order to get his body into shape and be able to actually somewhat perform the stunts that you see in the movie. So it's not always a stunt man that's doing the scenes in the movie, which is a really cool aspect.
Yeah, also, another thing is they also had M. Night Shyamalan interested in this movie.
Yeah, they'd actually attached M. Night Shyamalan. Can you guys believe that? We probably would have gotten to where it probably would have been like...
At the end of the movie, it was all in his head.
Yeah, that it was a dream, that Spider-Man never happened. That's probably what would have happened. Given the reputation of M. Night Shyamalan that we have today, there's a good chance that could have happened.
And another director they had interested in was Roland Emmerich. If you know who he is, then you've clearly not have watched a bunch of different disaster movies.
So the movie Spider-Man 2002 is it's basically a combination of Ultimate Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man, with elements of both kind of smashed together. And in that aspect, it actually works really well, because the original origin story, as most of you guys out there will know, is that Peter is bitten by an irradiated spider. However, in the Ultimate universe, it's a genetically engineered spider that bites him, which is what is portrayed in the movie.
Sorry, guys, I was just yawning there.
So, Tobey, of course, gives an awesome performance. So much so that I can't really imagine any other person as Spider-Man. I'm sorry.
And he actually got an award for Best Actor for...
To be fair, I haven't really seen the MCU movies.
I have.
I can't compare them that much.
I have.
I've
so
only
let me
seen
fill in the
clips
blanks
and
for you,
bits
Dad.
for it.
Let me fill in the blanks. I've seen Homecoming, and Tom, he does a good job and all, but he doesn't come close to Tobey Maguire. Like when I picture Spider-Man, I picture Tobey Maguire's voice coming out, and I picture and I hear his voice coming. When I read a Spider-Man comic, I always read it kind of in his voice.
So
because it's that, I can't picture anybody else but him in that role.
Well, I'll have to backtrack a little bit, because I'm a huge fan of the Spider-Man, the animated series as well, so I could picture the voice of that Spider-Man if I was reading a Spider-Man comic as well. It could either be either or. But the story is
Dad,
pretty true and pretty core to the actual comics, because comic books matter, guys. They do. We all know this, those of us who watch superhero films.
But Dad, at least MCU fans and original trilogy fans can all agree that the Amazing Spider-Man films suck.
So the movie centers around the fact that Peter is in fact bitten by this by this genetically
Dad, get your facts straight. We just watched the movie.
I know. Genetically engineered spider, and the spider DNA mixes with his own DNA, giving him the spider powers. And in this version, of course, he is able to shoot the webs out of his wrist without the use of actual web slingers, the web shooters that he developed in the comics, of course. And he then
that's part of the Ultimate Universe, by the way.
He then he's basically had a crush on Mary Jane since they were like kindergartners, which is kind of revealed a little bit in the sequels, more so than in this movie. But those of you,
he says that they've been neighbors since he was 6.
Yeah. So anyways, he's had a crush on her all this time. And he kind of gets the idea that, money and fast cars are what's going to attract the women. Why? Because Mary Jane seems to be attracted to Flash Thompson because of him having a fast car and being a jock and all that. However, I think because there is the scene where Mary Jane's dad comes screaming out at her and she's all kind of hurt and confused, and Peter really wants to confront her and be there for her, but immediately she switches gears as soon as Flash shows up. But that may be more to hide her emotional pain more than anything else.
Yeah, I agree on that. And later on in the movie, she dates Harry Osborn,
who has daddy issues for sure.
Yeah.
And my
now we can segue, as we've mentioned that. Now we can segue into Norman Osborn.
Okay, so Harry Osborn, of course, is played by James Franco, and I felt that he gave a really good performance, but perhaps not his best performance. It could have been better, in my opinion. Willem Dafoe, though, is definitely one of the shining moments of this movie. Yes. He, as Norman Osborn, absolutely steals the scene in any scene that he's in.
Oh, wait a second. We haven't gotten Norman Osborn in the MCU yet.
No, I guess you guys haven't, or we haven't. That's kind of weird.
Marvel,
Marvel.
Give
Disney.
us it.
Where's it at?
Where is he at? I would have
been
so much more
focused on the Infinity War and all that other stuff and Avengers, but you guys, I guess, are kind of neglecting lone superheroes here. It's always been about the teams, huh?
Yeah, it's like, come on, give us hair, or give us Green Goblin.
And I'll admit, guys, I'm not really the biggest superhero team type of guy. I do love X-Men, but like Fantastic Four, never really got into. Avengers, never really got into. On DC's side, I never really got into Justice League or any of that. I'm more of a...
You never got into the Teen Titans?
No. I really kind
of... Big Teen Titans fan here, guys.
I really kind of identify more with like a lone superhero, but that's just me.
Big Teen Titans fan.
So anyways,
I will talk about that show any day of the week.
Norman Osborn, he also runs Oscorp, and he's basically like developing military-grade weapons, and his funding is going to get pulled if he doesn't get to be able to develop the nerve gas to develop super soldiers, basically, in time. So he tested on himself. However, Norman is an abusive workaholic father towards his son, and he has deep psychological issues. They manifest themselves after he is exposed to the nerve gas, exposing basically split personality disorder with probably some bits of schizophrenia, and that he kind of talks to himself and he enters himself.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
and it's
he's able to become the Goblin from there. And another criticism I can kind of lay on this movie, because it's definitely not without its flaws. However, it is a great film. I can't stress that much enough. The Goblin costume itself is quite cartoonish looking, if I want to be straight and honest about it. And the helmet, it's kind of like, maybe they should have went with more of the traditional design of the Green Goblin for the movie. And another aspect that I can throw out there is this movie really shows you what depths that news propaganda that is false can with all that we go through and all that it goes on and on and on. The news propaganda that labels Spider-Man as a hero or a menace, and they lead more toward him being a menace, and of course he's not. with J. Jonah Jameson doing all this, and we all know the name of the game with fake news and news that's not real news, and how all they really want to do is sell, sell, sell. Get you to watch whatever news channel it is or read whatever it is on the internet. Well, it's the same thing in the newspaper business. They come up with these headlines here and there that are meant to grab your attention so that you buy more and more and more. And that's the way it always is, and that's the way it's always been. Mm-hmm. So let's get off of that. Yeah. Threw that one out there, but it was an interesting parallel that here we are seeing it once again. However, back to the story at hand, and that so he becomes the Green Goblin, and he has his first battle with Spider-Man, who rejects his proposal to basically team up with him. Now, I should mention that it does follow the burglar story as well, and that because Peter wants to impress Mary Jane, he tries to buy a car, so he sees that they are wanting amateur wrestlers, and he goes up against Bonesaw McGraw, who is played by the iconic Macho Man Randy Savage. I mean, come on, guys. Hall of Fame pro wrestler in a Spider-Man movie. That in itself is very cool.
Yeah.
So, Peter beats Bonesaw McGraw, and he expects his payment of $3,000. However, the promoter doesn't give it to him. He gives him like $100 because he beat him in 2 minutes. And that kind of harkens back to anybody who knows anything about the pro wrestling business, about shady promoters.
Promoters are shady
stiffing
people.
Their talents.
Promoters are shady. Just look at WWE for an example.
They're kind of shady in general. It's the same in the music business too, because it's all about that money, baby. Anyways, a burglar, well, he's a robber at that point. He attempts to rob the money of the promoter after the promoter stiffed Peter, and the robber gets away, and Peter just lets him. And then there's the scene where the cops are chasing the burglar down after Uncle Ben is basically shot by the burglar. And then
comes the most powerful line, and one of the most iconic lines that anybody and everybody knows. Say with me now, Dad.
With great power comes great responsibility. Yeah, it is a great line, actually, because people in power should remember that they have a responsibility to themselves, to their family, to other people around them. I have a responsibility to myself, my son, my wife, co-workers who depend on me, so I may not have a lot of power per se, but with the power that I do have the responsibility. So it's something that's a life lesson that people do need to take to heart. Now, as I said, after all of that, they show that he realizes that he feels guilty about Uncle Ben, so he goes on the superhero spree of saving people, and then the Goblin had his fight, and then he wants him to join him, but he doesn't. So, but in the fight, he gets cut. Peter does. And so they're having Thanksgiving, and Peter's expected to be there, but he doesn't make it in time, and Norman shows up before him, and he actually attaches himself to the ceiling. However, a small little blood droplet falls from him right as Norman turns to go out the door. And so Norman sees it, puts 2 and 2 together, hatches a plan that includes putting Aunt May in the hospital, then kidnapping Mary Jane, then goading Spider-Man into the fight where he has to choose between saving Mary Jane and saving a cable car full of people. He manages to do both.
Be quiet real quick. You just skipped over one of the most iconic scenes from this movie as well. Not just the great power comes with great responsibility line, but...
Well, that's why you're supposed to interject and throw your own bits into these things,
the upside down kiss scene.
Yeah.
Seriously, people. If you haven't heard of this scene, it is the most popular scene of all time. Like, it's been parodied so much. Heck, The Simpsons even parodied it when Homer becomes a superhero. Remember that?
And fun fact that concerning The Simpsons, most people know that Danny Elfman did the theme of The Simpsons, and he also scored Batman. Well, he scores Spider-Man, and in my opinion, it's a brilliant movie score. Danny Elfman does a really excellent job as far as conveying the superhero tone of the movie with his score.
Yeah.
So...
okay, Dad, now you can get back.
He has to save the cable car and Mary Jane. He manages to do both. They actually have this big fight scene at the end of the movie here where Norman Osborn attempts to pacify Peter into thinking that he's actually had a change of heart. Peter notices that the Goblin glider is behind him, and Norman gets impaled by the Goblin glider. And his final words are to don't tell Harry that he was in fact the Goblin. And so Peter drops Norman off, and then James Franco, who played Harry, he sees him and he blames Spider-Man for his death.
Yeah, this is one of the most powerful scenes that James Franco has done in the trilogy.
Yeah.
Just because, he shows that he shows that side of aggression where you truly feel that he has a pure hatred for Spider-Man until Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, which we'll get to.
We'll get to that.
So, final thoughts on this one is that I really, really love it. It's a great film. If you haven't seen it, check it out. You can find it literally everywhere on DVD. We didn't have to search for a streaming service this time, which is why we didn't mention it, but I'm sure you can find it on all kinds of streaming apps. Hulu, he says. But, of course, as always, if you in fact think that Spider-Man 2002 sucks and is the worst film that you've ever seen and you can never watch it again, well, of course, that's your opinion. And just remember that our opinions don't matter because...
Except they do.
Wait for it.
We'll get it out.
We're just two idiots with a cell phone camera. Our opinions don't really matter, except they actually do, because we have a YouTube show, except they actually don't. Now, having said that, I give this movie 4.25 stars out of 5. What's that?
Dad, you are really pushing my patience, aren't you? How dare you give this masterpiece?
As I said, I had a few flaws. I had a few problems with it.
Fine, but the next movie you better give it 5 out of 5.
We'll see with
five
swinging
Spider-Mans out of 5.
Well, that still gives it 4 2/3 stars out of 5. Once again, guys, as we said, if you haven't seen it, check it out.
Good job on your mental math there,
If
guys.
you haven't, if you haven't seen it, check it out. If you have seen it and would like to see it again as a refresher, and you think that we did a good job here, that's great. You can leave all that down in the comments below, and we'll of course try to respond to as many of them as possible. So like we said, as usual, you can find it on DVD and whatnot, and we'll see you next time for Spider-Man 2 on I Love This Movie. Until then, which will be next week, until then, peace and love from Denny and Son. Bye.